I would not say Instagram has much of its own personality.
Your words, not ours.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Outside the Fox, where we explore what's happening online and why it matters. I'm Kim Horcher.
I'm Steve Flavin, and we are talking about the TikTokification of content. It's everywhere. Even if you're not on TikTok, it has spread to news, ads, career tips, hot takes, therapy videos. LinkedIn, they have short form videos on LinkedIn. Not sure how I feel about that.
What is LinkedIn anymore? What is Instagram anymore? I don't know. Those identities seem to be changing and merging, but that's not really the crux of what we're talking about today. But we have someone who is very knowledgeable about TikTok and changing media forms. Joining us today is Nikita Redcar, a TikTok creator who breaks down news, history, and culture with wit and humor and fun. Here she is. Welcome, Nikita.
Hi.
Well, before we get into the questions, Nikita, would you mind for the audience just giving a little self-intro on who you are and what kind of content that you make?
So my name is Nikita. I am a TikToker and Instagrammer, content creator in general, and I have a page called Bimbo University where I explain news, politics, and history like it's gossip.
Cool. What made you come up with bimbofication, of all things?
Well, I just really like dressing up in that style, and I thought it would be fun to explain these complicated and often nerdy topics in like a fun, girly way, because I just found them in school to be, a little bit like sterile and taught in a very kind of boring way. So I was like, what if I make this fun? What if I equate geopolitical tensions to like friendship and relationship strife and just kind of ground them in the realities of our day-to-day lives in an effort to like make these complicated subjects more easier and palatable to people. I'm really passionate about it, but I feel like you can't be nerdy and girly at the same time. So I was like, no, let me fix that.
Yeah, I saw some and I thought, she's Elle Woods. She knows things. She's just doing this in a pink veneer. But I'm curious how you approach the really complex topics that you tackle by hitting the right level. So not too simple, not too complicated.
I've definitely had a lot of trial and error with that. I've definitely been a little, too simplistic to the point where people got offended and were like, do you really think I can't understand this? And I've definitely gotten too complicated where people are like, I had to watch this twice and I still don't get it. It was a lot of trial and error to strike that balance. To be honest, I still feel like some subjects really are not that easy to explain, and I have to kind of just take them as they are on surface level, whereas some you can have a little more fun with it. And I have recently started doing a lot more history in my content rather than breaking news and current news, because I find that finding that like historical parallel to what's going on today is a little more of a fun and less bleak way to learn about what's going on right now.
You're really great at taking complex topics and boiling it down into something, short, digestible, but also funny. What role does humor play in what you do and how you approach it?
It's just because I think my generation is just so depressed. I feel like we've been dealt a really terrible hand.
I laugh, but I cry.
I just think humor is a way to make people not lose hope. I really try to not fall into the path of doomerism online. And that's why I try to keep everything fun and silly and flirty, even though,
Do you feel like people understand what you're doing, or do they maybe misunderstand because of the format?
As far as content goes online, there's going to be people that misunderstand it. There's going to be people that don't like what I'm doing, but then you can also scroll if you don't like it. I definitely have other content creator friends who take like a more serious approach, whereas if they infused comedy into theirs, it would probably be a little bit off, but that's just always been my style. So yeah, my audience expects it.
We've talked on other episodes, and I think the crux of this particular topic on the TikTokification of the web there's a sort of negative pushback that's happened where a lot of people dismiss platforms like TikTok or short form content because they see it as mindless. You're just like scrolling, and it's just like these short, bite-sized videos that we all have lost our attention spans. But at the same time, there is something to be said about being able to say what you mean in a succinct way, and being able to boil things down and communicate them effectively. And I'm curious if you see that as like a way of reclaiming the format for yourself, or if you gel with that general perception, or if you push back against it.
Yes and no. I understand where people are coming from, because I'm talking about these serious subjects that require journalism and research and facts that are just smushed between cat videos and comedy sketches and things that are like a lot less serious, right? So I get where people are coming from, but I think instead of kind of facing that critique, we can definitely work together the way in the past bloggers were kind of taking over the reins of journalism and kind of like threatening their jobs, but then they all decided, then they were like working together, hiring from each other and all of that. So I think like journalists and content creators have a lot to learn from each other as far as just like the general population of people doubting what kind of content is on there. I make it a point to not spread misinformation. I realize how dire of a thing that is right now, and how much it just like affects and shapes our reality. So like I have a sources document, for example, that I update with all my videos. I include screenshots of the news articles that I referenced in my videos. So I think you just really have to follow the type of people who do pay attention to combating misinformation like that and do cite their stats and facts and sources, instead of just like someone getting up to the camera and being like, well, this and this happened, and, just providing no backing for it.
Oh, me too. I really appreciate that you are sticking to those standards, even though, maybe not everyone else in your spheres does that. So that is very notable and something that I commend personally. But going back to where we were before, or off the top, I said, what even is Instagram anymore? Because it kind of wants to be TikTok, but does it? It kind of wants to be YouTube. I'm curious about how you approach the platforms, let's say TikTok and Instagram, differently. Do you make your content a little bit different for each platform?
Well, I repost the same videos on TikTok and Instagram, but I think the community there is very different. For example, TikTok is going to be pushing your videos primarily to people who don't know you. That's what the For You page is. It's a discovery page. You're discovering people that you don't follow, that you will follow. So a lot of these people are not exactly my audience members yet. So I can't really treat them with like the intimacy of, guys, we talked about this last time. This week, let's talk about this subject. But it is like less of like an intimate type of experience, whereas Instagram, most of the time, the people who are watching my videos are my followers. So I can be a little bit like, kind of like a group and community with them.
I think the elephant in the room when it comes to any kind of social content is the algorithm, right? Is sometimes impacts the type of content that we make, the frequency that we post it, how we're interacting with our followers. And I've heard of a wide spectrum of people who ignore the algorithm, or people who like really optimize for what they suspect the algorithm is doing, which is hard to say because they're not very transparent about that.
I had a boss who was like, make a viral video. And I was like, what do you mean by that?
Because it's easy, right?
Yeah.
No.
But anyway, so there's a question buried in there. In how do you approach creating your content with the algorithm in mind?
You have to realize that people are scrolling through your videos and they have 0.5 seconds to make up their mind whether they want to watch the rest of this or they're going to scroll by. So you really have to put the meat of your video, the hook, in like the first second, less than that. It's about like jumping on relevant topics, trends, and kind of catching people's attention in like that first half of a second. Like you really don't, like, imagine you consuming content. What's going to stick out to you?
how do you work with that? I mean, do you chase trends or do your own thing? How much control do you have over what works and what doesn't in that ecosystem?
I mean, I don't do most trends. There are people whose entire social media is jumping on trending songs, trending audios, trending dances, and that works for them and their audience expects that from them. But for me, since my niche is like news and history, it's a little random for me to be jumping. I mean, I still do because I have fun doing them, but at this point, it's what people expect of me and it's what they recognize in me. For example, if I walk down the street and do a video in my usual style, just like holding the camera up here and walking down the street and talking, those videos have a much higher rate of viewership and engagement than if I'm just like talking right now. Like they won't even recognize me if I'm just like put my phone up and start talking and I'm in my room.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
like picking a visual, distinct style.
Yeah, it's like creating your own iconography where like at a glance, like even when you're scrolling through, it's like, oh, that's very identifiable as your unique content. That's really cool.
So are all platforms becoming kind of samey in chasing the same trend?
TikTok usually is ahead of the curve, and then the trends go to Instagram Reels.
I've heard that where it's like, oh, I saw that on TikTok 2 weeks ago. Great.
Yeah. Instagram is like a content aggregator from all the other social medias. I think if everything eventually comes to Instagram because Instagram collects it all. I would not say Instagram has much of its own personality, the way TikTok and Twitter do, for example, or X.
Agreed.
Your words, not ours.
Well, I did just co-sign it, but that's fine. Do you have advice for creators who are trying to do something more meaningful, like maybe not chase the dance trends like you mentioned and say something that's important to them?
Number one is consistency. Most of your videos are not going to go viral. And I'm saying this as someone who's been doing this for like 3 years. If I get lucky, I'll have like one a month go above 1 million. So I would say this. I would say don't chase the views. Focus more on like the followers that you have and the community that you do have and responding to them in the comments. Posting stories on Instagram that are interactive, like polls or like a weekly type of questionnaire where people can get involved. Just things to, make your audience want to interact with you and expect something from you. So if you have like every Monday, I'm going to post my hot takes. Then every Monday, your audience will start to expect hot takes on Monday, right? So it's kind of like building that community that way. And then people on the outside will be like, oh, I want to join. And then, follow you that way.
That's great. I mean, how do you keep your motivation so high? It seems high.
I have a lot of motivation right now. Well, thank you so much. I was literally just talking about the fact that like every August my motivation tanks because I'm like, it's summer. I want to be outside. I don't want to be working. I guess I really do believe in what I'm doing. And I do believe that it's like helping people in some way. So that makes me, and people do come up to me in the streets, which is nice, and tell me that they enjoy my content or that I've helped them understand something that they previously didn't understand before. So I just kind of, really stick to that mission. And I also want to spread positivity right now. As I said before, it's a very historically trying time at the moment. And I think that people are really feeling the weight of it. And if I can be like a beacon of light and happiness on social media mixed in with all the other, scary doomer apocalypse stuff, then I would feel really happy about that.
Oh, that's great. I love to hear that. Thank you, Nikita.
Yeah.
Well, Nikita, thank you so much for joining us. It's so much fun to have a fellow content creator on the podcast. And I think we had a really awesome conversation.
That was so good.
Thank you.
And a question for the audience, what is one small way that you have defied the algorithm lately? Let us know in the comments.
Subscribe to the channel and be sure to download Firefox because it's the best. We'll see you next time.